Hey folks, it's me again, Kaiser Neko, and this is the episode breakdown. In this installment, we're covering episode 48. I've been excited to talk about this one, because it's got a lot going on in it that I especially enjoyed working on. Let's start off with lip flaps. Now, this part actually made me wonder if I'd put it here or under visual effects, but it's technically lip flaps, so here it is. Cell motorboating with his lips. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I basically cut out his lips, repasted them, and then added a small blur. I also made the frame rate 1:1 to keep it moving abnormally fast. The next scene is Android 18 here. I copied and pasted these flaps from another shot, actually, as she doesn't originally speak in the shot. The next is with Tenshinhan here. His flaps are from this scene here. This shot of Cell is one of my favorites in the episode, but it was a little difficult to create because he doesn't actually talk in this shot proper. I had to borrow it from this shot here, where he does actually speak, then pasted it here. The following shot, Tenshinhan doesn't actually speak, he just breathes heavily. So I took these flaps available to me and edited them appropriately into place. Goku's flaps here, taken from another scene entirely. Same in this shot. And finally, Vegeta's flaps here are from an entirely different scene as well. And that's lip flaps! Relatively simple this time around, but don't worry. Visual effects have a lot going on. This opening shot of Krillin is one of my favorites, and at this point, a relatively easy edit to make for me despite the complexity. First, almost all shots of Bulma talking have the moving background as a separate layer. I also edited the background out of this shot of Krillin, then inserted this moving shot to help give the idea that he was still flying toward Bulma. For this shot of him hitting the car, I cut out this shot of Krillin here, then pasted it and used motion blur in After Effects, and then animated him moving toward the vehicle. I also pasted the cutout of Krillin underneath, blurred it, halved the opacity, set the blend mode to overlay, and cropped it as necessary to make a reflection of him in the glass. As for the shadow, that's just this cutout here, blown up, blurred, and turned black with the tint filter. I then animated it slowly sliding down the glass. Also, those squeaky glass sound effects are harder to find than you'd think. Oh hey, it's the cock! The cock is actually a pretty simple edit. I just add a new number every time, blur the old one as necessary, then replace it with the new one. The next edit was adding a little bit of electricity to 16's head here with the lightning tool. Expect more of that in the future. See the shot of Cell's hand? He actually lowers it before he turns his head, but I wanted to keep it for dramatic effect. So I cut it out and pasted it there. I also covered up Mr. Popo and Master Roshi's sweat drop in both these shots. I also redrew some of Chi-Chi's face to make her look more casual. Now this shot is interesting. I actually needed Cell to rise up behind Tenshinhan, but the original shot only has him this far up in the sky. As such, I cut out Tenshinhan, repasted him, then moved Cell myself. Now here's where things get real fun. See, this shot of Goku is simple. I wanted him to look a little less shocked, so I gave him a closed lip flap that was a little less intense and enlarged his pupils a bit. But for these next few shots, I needed him to not look so angry, more neutral. So I redrew these 3 shots. As well, this shot of Cell is from another scene with a different background. This shot of Goku has a new background, as does this shot of Piccolo. For this shot of Goku Vision, as we like to call it, I blurred it, messed with the brightness and contrast, as well as the levels, and took down the opacity a bit. I then set the blend mode to screen. Wham bam arigato ma'am, that's visual effects! Lots of fun ones this time around. Oh, and speaking of fun, fun facts! Okay, this one's particularly funny for me. When we started coming up with the characteristics for Android 17, we had the idea of this white wannabe gangster motif that played a little bit like Jamie Kennedy. We ultimately scrapped it, but we brought it back for this little moment. There was originally a joke in this scene also where Cell makes a terrible Call Me Maybe reference. It was cut. You're welcome. This entire scene was basically written by Gan Xingba, Tenshinhan's actor, and myself several years ago. We'd been very excited for it, partially because we're all big Tenshinhan fans, and this is kind of his last big hurrah in the series, as well as the last great hurrah for humans in general in Dragon Ball. We wrote the script sometime in probably about early May. If you watch plenty of our Xenoverse Let's Plays during this period, you might hear a lot of the term nettled being thrown around. We started using the term after we gave it to Goku here, so it was kind of a preview of this line. If I can help it, I will never have a normal teleport for Goku ever again, and will make sure the same thing happens every time. In this scene, we originally had this joke about Trunks trying to speak like a badass, only for Vegeta to cut him off abruptly. We scrapped it for a joke about his hair instead. That music in the background of the Goku vision? From Loco Rosso. And that's it, kids! Thank you again for joining me for another episode breakdown. Currently, I'm working on episode 49 and getting ready for Anime Midwest up in Chicago. We hope some of you will join us there. Thanks again for all your support. Check out our gaming channel if you're so inclined. And remember that we're always updating on Facebook and Twitter. See you later!